Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Everyone can turn off your cell phone. No calls. No calls during class. Reading from Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 6, text number 34. Page number 179. No, wrong page. Page number 304. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna Pramati bhavavam nirham Dashaham nigraham manye Vayor iva sadus duskaram. Word for word. Chanchalam, flickering. He, certainly. Mana, mind. Krishna, O Krishna. Pramati, agitating. Bhavavat, strong. Isham, obstinate. Dasya, it's. I. Nigraham, subduing. Manye, think. Vayo, of the wind. Eva, like. Duskaram, difficult. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. For the mind is restless, determined, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Purport: the wind is so strong and obstinate that it sometimes overcomes the intelligence. The mind is so strong and obstinate that it sometimes overcomes the intelligence, although the mind is supposed to be subservient to the intelligence. For a man in the practical world who has to fight so many opposing elements, it's certainly very difficult to control the mind. Artificially, one may establish a mental equilibrium toward both friends and enemies, but ultimately no worldly man can do so, for this is more difficult than controlling the raging wind. In the Katha Upanishad, Vedic literature, 1.3.4, it says, the individual is the passenger in the car of the material body, and the intelligence is the driver. Mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. The self is thus the enjoyer or sufferer, as the association of the mind and senses. In the association of mind and senses, so it is understood by great thinkers. Intelligence is supposed to direct the mind, but the mind is so strong and obstinate that it often overcomes even one's own mind, as an acute infection may surpass the efficiency of medicine. So a strong mind is supposed to be controlled by the practice of yoga. But such practice is never practical for a worldly person like Arjuna. What can we say of modern men? The simile used here is appropriate. One cannot capture the blowing wind. It is even more difficult to capture the turbulent mind. The easiest way to control the mind, as suggested by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is chanting Hare Krishna, the great mantra for deliverance in all humanity. The method prescribed is Svaya Namaha Krishna Paravindaya. One must engage one's mind fully in Krishna. Only then will there remain no other engagement to agitate the mind. Om Arganataram Dasya Jana Jana Sakaya Sakshumi Tam Jena Tasme Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagata Sagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabhutam Prajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Padam Sagana Laita Vishagam Tam Cham Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Gapate Gopisha Gopikanta Radha Kanta Nausute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Hare Vrindavan Ishwari Rishabhanu Sate Devi Vanchakopa Tiribhyascha Sindhu Bhavecha Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Guru Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gun Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Where the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, very strong, O Krishna, to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. So I'm going to read the purport to the next verse. The difficulty of controlling the opposite mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment it's possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses of the mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter, engagement of the mind in spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to activities of Krishna. This is practicable because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Parameshnu Bhava, spiritual satisfaction. It's just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction. As the mind becomes detached from material objective, it is sometimes like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind, and eating foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. Translation once again, for the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, very strong. O Krishna, to do it I think is more difficult than controlling the wind. So this section in verses 28 to 36 are dealing with the perfection of yoga. But one might ask why Krishna is telling Arjuna about this kind of yoga system, which is not applicable at this in Kali Yuga. But because we see that people are trying to practice yoga in the big cities, they have yoga clubs, yoga institutions. There are many Swami yogis went to America to teach people how to practice yoga. They have you sit down, close your eyes, and tell you to think of nothing. But when you're thinking of nothing, you're thinking of something. You can't think of nothing. That's not possible. And most time, people sit down, close their eyes, and fall asleep. So there's not any benefit. But people teach yoga and teach meditation, but they don't teach people that they have to control their senses first. This is real yoga practice. If you can't control your senses, then you can't possibly practice yoga. Especially Vacha Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam. Especially the tongue. You can't control your tongue, you can't control your mind, you can't control your senses. Then there's no question of practicing any kind of yoga. So, the mad mind, we all have the experience of having the mad mind. And here it says that sometimes the mad mind even overcomes the intelligence. The intelligence will tell us we should do something, but the mind will override us and tell us that we should do it. Of course, Guru Shastra Sadhu, if we're trying to understand what we should do or not do, then we should consult with the Guru Shastra and Sadhu, or some senior Vaishnava. Or even in our Krishna conscious movement, occasionally we find that devotees commit suicide. Why do people commit suicide? Because their mind goes mad, and they don't try to get help. If you have a mad mind, it's like like having a disease. So you can go to a psychiatrist, you can go to a mental hospital, take some medicine, and you can cure your mad mind. But some people go off the deep end, and they think that living no longer to live any longer is not very. To commit suicide is a solution to the problem. But we know that's not the solution. And Sanatana Goswami was traveling through the forest, Jarikonda, to meet Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. He drank some bad water and got itching sores all over his body. And they were oozing pus and blood, and they were smelling bad. And so he, in his mind, he decided that when I get to Jagannath Puri, I'm going to be offensive to Lord Chaitanya and the Vaishnavas with this disease. So I'll just jump at the Rath Yatra time. I'll jump onto the wheel of the Rath cart and commit spiritual suicide. Well, Lord Chaitanya knew the mind was Sanatana Goswami, and he called him and he said that this is not proper. Suicide is in the mode of ignorance. Even if it's spiritual suicide, You can't do that because that body doesn't belong to you. The body belongs to me, and I have so many things to do through your body. And then Lord Chaitanya embraced him at one point, and all these sores went away. So either case, the mind is there, restless, always active, like a small child, especially when they turn 2 years old. It's called the terrible two, because the child doesn't want to sit still, has to always be running around. So the mind is like that. When we sit down to chant japa, where the mind will start to wander. It's called inattentiveness. 11th of 10th offense is to be inattentive while chanting. So we have to keep bringing it back. We have to keep hearing the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Yes, Prabhupada, what we should think about when we're chanting. Prabhupada said you shouldn't think about anything. You should just hear the holy name. But still the mind wanders. It's still a problem. Very difficult to cure that problem. But the recommended by Haridas Thakur and Harinam Chintamani that we chant in the association of devotees, that we chant in front of Tulsi, that we can listen to Prabhupada chanting japa in the background, whatever is helpful to keep our mind from going away. So the mind, so many impressions are there from previous life. When we became a devotee, before we became a devotee, previous life, for most of us, some of those who are fortunate to be born in the Krishna conscious movement, don't have the same experience that people who were not born in the Krishna conscious movement. So we engage in all sinful activities, and the mind may be thinking about these things when we're chanting japa. So we have to treat the mind like a wrong number. Someone calls and says, "Kon bolo." They want to know who they're talking to, but you say wrong number and we hang up. So we have to treat the mind like the wrong number. Hang up on the mind. If you have some service, some work, do it first, then chant, or wait till you finish chanting. So chanting, hearing and chanting, the two processes are most important process of devotional service. If you practice yoga, you can't do that in a big city. That's a farcical arrangement. People trying to practice yoga in a big city, noisy city, dirty city, or wherever. So even as time goes, when one gets over 50 years old, then he can retire from family life. And in former ages, we have so many examples of great kings who retired from family life. Maharaja Shabdev, he was the incarnation of the Lord. He retired from family life, and even while he was still in the king, still in his kingdom, but he became an avadut, which means he gave up he didn't wear any clothes, he didn't take baths, he didn't cut his hair. He was looking like a dull madman. But he wasn't. He was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was just showing how one can become detached from all family life. And Maharaj Parikshit got notice that he was going to die in 7 days. He also renounced everything. He gave up his family, his children, his animals, his treasury, everything. He left everything and went to sit on the bank of the Ganges and hear from Sukadeva Goswami the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in other cases also, where Bharat Maharaj was a very great king, and he named the planet after him, Bharatvarsh. And he retired from family life. He gave up his wealth, his children, his family, everything he owned. He gave it up like when one answers the call of nature, one gives it up and goes away. So this is required from everyone at a certain point in life, that one retire from any material entanglement and practice bhakti-yoga. Not that we can go to the forest and sit down and practice this Astanga yoga, where it's a very difficult process and the requirements are very strict. First you have to be free from fear. If you're not fearless, you can't go to the forest, because you'll be worried about wild animals coming to attack you. And you have to be free from sex desire, celibate. The Prabhupada says if you want to imitate Haridas Thakur, he would sit and chant 300,000 names every day in a secluded place. If you want to imitate Haridas Thakur, you'll just end up thinking of sex life instead of chanting. So we can't do that either. So artificially we can't do anything that is not positive. In the process of devotional service, surrender, there's 6 symptoms of surrender, and we must accept that which is favorable and reject that which is unfavorable. So it's unfavorable to try to practice yoga, this kind of yoga. And Arjuna is saying that he can't do it because the mind is so strong that he says the mind it's more difficult to control the mind. It's like trying to stop the wind with your arms. Who can stop the wind with your arms? Or sometimes it says like holding a tiger by the ears, try to control a tiger by holding its ears. So these things are very difficult. So the yoga became popular in America. Some yogis went there and introduced different kinds of yoga and things. But mainly they were in Mayavadis, impersonalists. They didn't give the people proper understanding of yoga. So Prabhupada went there to teach bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotional service. So when we come to Krishna consciousness and we hear the philosophy and take prasadam and associate with devotees, we come convinced that this process is something better than anything else in the material world. So that's why people join the Krishna consciousness movement. Of course, you have to have some sakriti from past life, and that means that you did some devotional service in your previous life. Krishna says, Nimikramana Shosti, there's no loss or diminution. So whatever Krishna consciousness you practice in this life, that will be carried over to your next life if you're not completely pure, and if you don't go back to God immediately, it'll go with you, whatever you do in your Krishna consciousness. So in this way, we decided, many people had so much opposition from the family, from the friends, that to become a devotee, because devotees have shaved head, wear bed sheets, put this bird stool on their noses, do so many weird things, have a flag on their head. So they can't understand it. That because this is not is unusual for the modern society to look like a devotee. Of course, in India, you can go anywhere in India, everybody knows, they see you, they know you're a devotee. You don't have to hide your identity. But in America, Prabhupada said even if you feel embarrassed to go out in a dhoti, you could wear pants and shirts. So sometimes for book distribution, we cover our identity. to make it easier for people to accept it. But in either case, we found that the practice of Krishna consciousness was much satisfying, that we didn't have to, but it's a strict life. We're practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, which means we found the rules and regulations. So the mind is always saying, telling us something else. Like the mind, when the alarm clock rings at 3:30, we say, well, I'm too tired, give me 10 more minutes. And we keep saying 10 more minutes. The mind doesn't want to get up or go to Mangala Arati. Today it's too cold, I'm not going to go to Mangala Arati. We make excuses with our mind. But whatever the spiritual master orders, that should be followed. If the spiritual master tells us to do something what we wouldn't ordinarily do, we do it. And he tells us to do something that we would do, tells us not to do something that we would do, then we don't do it. So in either case, we follow a strict program. One time the CIA agents decided to come to the temple and said they wanted to join our movement, they wanted to become bhaktas. Of course, they didn't tell us they were CIA agents, but they just looked like ordinary people. But after a few days, they said, this is too strict, we can't do this. And I think even one of them may become a devotee, but the Indian government, they got the idea somehow or other that the Krishna consciousness movement, we were part of the CIA. The Prabhupada said, what's the CIA doing in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, chanting and dancing in the streets, wearing dhoti, kurta, tilak? So this is a foolish proposal. I don't know why some people still think we're with the CIA. But this is a spiritual movement. This has nothing to do with anything political or any government issues. So, anyway, the Krishna consciousness movement is a practical way to control the mind. Savaya Namaha Krishna Paravindayo. Maharaj Ambarish, he controlled all his senses, he engaged all his senses in the 9 processes of devotional service. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smarnam says that this is the first process. Shravanam, Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. So that's why we have these Bhagavatam class every day, so we can hear the spiritual sound vibration, and it's a gradual process. Bhavanam jamanamante gyaravam papajante vasudeva sazamiti samaha masadurlabha. So after many, many births, one may attain perfection. Lord Kapila Dev told Mother Devahuti that we should hear about Krishna's pastime for a very, very long time. So by hearing, the heart becomes purified. It's all a matter of heart problem, heart disease. The heart is contaminated, and in order to get Krishna to sit in your heart, to attain love for Krishna, first the heart has to become softened. So this is the process for softening our heart, by hearing about Krishna's pastimes. So we're very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada translated and perimported so many books. And the first book was the Krishna book, which is a summary study of the 10th canto, which lets us hear Krishna's pastimes. So the practice was in the early days that they would read the Krishna book at night before you take rest. And that way you may be able to think of Krishna even when you're sleeping. But for most people that's not possible. But at least during the waking hours, we can think of Krishna by reading Prabhupada's books, by chanting Hare Krishna, by engaging in kirtan, by attending the Mangala Arati, by seeing the deities. So many things are there to engage us engage our senses, engage our mind, engage our body. Because we can't imitate Haridas Thakur, we can't sit and chant all day, but there's so many different services. We had so many temples. Now we have about 800 temples all over the world. So in any temple is considered Vaikuntha. Vai means without, and Kunta means anxiety. So the temple requires devotees to worship the deities. Deity worship means cooking for the deities, means making flower garlands, making dresses, dressing the deities. So many engagements are there. And the temple also needs to be cleaned. And the temple also needs to be maintained. So in this way, there's so many engagements, there's so many devotees. So not that we are just sit and chant all day, but we have to do some practical service, whatever one is feels happy with. According to temple authorities, one does some practical service. But we should understand that whatever service we're doing, whether it's banking or cleaning the temple floor or dressing the deities, it's not for our sense gratification. It's for Krishna's pleasure. So by doing that, it becomes a devotional service. It becomes service to Krishna. Although for the common people, outside people, it looks like we're doing ordinary activities, but it's not the same thing. The people next door, even here, they're doing the same activities. They're cooking, they're cleaning, they're doing the same activities, but they're not. It's not for the satisfaction of Krishna, so they don't get the same result. But devotees are doing everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, and this way we're engaging our mind and engaging our senses. Ta Shri Krishna Nama the Namabed Indriyani says the senses have to become purified. Chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Goloke Premadana, Hare Ram Sankirtana. The spiritual sound vibration, the Hare Krishna mantra is a spiritual sound vibration. So a question may be raised, how we can chant something spiritual if we have material tongue, material senses. But we can't. We are only chanting a semblance of the holy name. We're chanting the Maha Mantra, but until the senses have to be purified. If you're chanting with purified senses, then you will get the feel some ecstatic symptoms when you're chanting the holy name. Namabhas. When you come to the level of Namabhas, the clearing stage, ecstatic symptoms are there. Haridas Thakur says even if you chant 64 rounds, but if you're not feeling ecstatic symptoms, you're still materially contaminated, still materially attached. So this process is very easy compared to anything else. Krishna says here, Prabhupada says here in this purport, that it's difficult, the impersonal process, to do meditation. 12th chapter, Krishna Arjuna asked the question, which is better, the impersonal process or the personal process? And Krishna says both are good for spiritual advancement, but of the two, the personal process is much easier. Impersonal process is Astanga Yoga, or only one to merge into the Brahman effulgence. That's not satisfying. It's not a permanent situation, and it's very difficult to sit and meditate on the void. You become void. So we'd rather be engaged in Krishna's service and go to Golok and take part in Krishna's pastimes, either as a car boy or gopi, whatever, and perform pure devotional service. This is the Jivar Surupwai Nitya Krishna Das, that we're the eternal servants of Krishna. That's not something that has to be artificially invoked. It's just like the child. Child is born, child has the ability to walk, but that ability to walk will manifest after some time. Gradually the child begins to walk. So in the same way, if we seriously practice Krishna consciousness and follow the 9 processes of devotional service and follow the 64 angas of devotional service are given in Nectar Devotion, then the fruits will be there. We'll start to develop our Krishna consciousness. It's compared to a green mango. Right now we're like a green mango. The green mango will become a ripe mango after some time. Any fruit or vegetable, if you put it in the sun, after some time it'll become a ripe. A green mango is sour, but a ripe mango is sweet. So the more we engage in Krishna consciousness, the more we'll begin to taste the sweetness, the taste for Krishna consciousness. But we have to be careful about becoming deviated, and be careful not to commit offenses. Especially the first offense is to blaspheme devotees. This is called the mad elephant offense. When you have a garden, if you're not careful to water the garden properly, then protect the garden, a mad elephant can come in. And as soon as that mad elephant comes in your garden, then everything is destroyed. So your devotional service can be checked or destroyed if you commit this the first offense, blasphemy devotees or criticize devotees. And if you read Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is emphasized very strongly that one should be very careful about criticizing devotees, about blaspheming devotees. And in all cases, we should avoid this as much as possible. If it's a little hot, you can turn on the fan. If someone's feeling hot, you can turn the fan. Someone want to turn on the fan? You're not feeling hot? Huh? Anyway. So, not turn it off, turn it on. It's getting hot. So this verse, purport, talks about the analogy is given that in the picture is there. Picture showing the passenger is the soul, the intelligence is the driver, the reins are the mind, and the horses are the senses. So they show the picture of the passengers in a frightful condition, and the horses are very wild, and the driver is trying his best to control the mind. Mamamsa jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. But Krishna says the living entity is suffering in this material world under the control of the 6 senses, which includes the mind. So everybody in the material world is suffering because of the uncontrolled senses and uncontrolled mind. So we should, by practicing Krishna consciousness, it's possible to control the mind and senses. But we have to always be aware. And so, when a person's living in Vrindavan, this is a special place, this is the holy Dham. We should not engage in different activities that are against Krishna consciousness, activities. Especially, we should not waste our time and looking in the internet, computer, Everyone has a computer, a phone, everything, internet, and it's very easy to get diverted and see the wrong thing on your phone or on the computer, which will distract us from our Krishna consciousness. And we should also always associate with devotees, not associate with non-devotees. And Rupa Goswami told us that the do's and the don'ts, so in the Nectar of Instruction. When they printed that book, Nectar of Instruction, they printed 2,000 copies. Prabhupada said, why? He says you should print 10,000 copies, distribute it to everyone all over the world. So the do's and don'ts are there, or how we should practice Krishna consciousness so we'll not be distracted. Especially in Vrindavan, we should be just engage in bhajan. And when one's ready to retire, he can come to Vrindavan or Mayapur or Jagannath Puri, any of the holy dhams, and sit and just do bhajan, just hear and chant for the rest of his life. One should not, Prabhupada said this is the most abominable thing, if a person stays with his family and his family life up until the time of death. Even besides the case, Nehru, he was the prime minister and he was even in a wheelchair, but he didn't want to give up his post, even up to the time of death. So there's so many cases. Dhritarashtra was living in the house of the Pandavas after the battle of Kurukshetra, and Vidura came there and instructed him and told him, you're like a kept dog, you're just eating the scraps thrown by Bhima, so you should get out of here. And so he did that. He went to the forest, he took his wife with him, even though he was blind, she was blindfolded, and he practiced his Ashtanga Yoga system and perfected this Ashtanga Yoga, and he eventually entered the fire, burned up in the fire, and his wife Gandhara, she also entered the fire. But because he was offensive to the Pandavas, he only got Brahman liberation. He did get liberated, but he only got the Brahman, went to the Brahman effulgence. So the whole Nitya Vidu Saragatim Hi Vishnu, the goal of life is to go back home, back to Godhead. And we should try to utilize this life, this short life, we only live 100 years at the most, to practice Krishna consciousness. So either make sure that our next life is at a higher position, or that we don't have to take birth again, we go back home, back to Godhead. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam. Krishna says, whatever we're thinking about at the time of death, that you'll attain. That you will attain. So we're practicing Krishna consciousness our whole life, and we're not deviating ourselves, we're not getting involved in the internet and different nonsense things, then it's a better chance we'll be thinking of Krishna at the time of death. So Mother Parvati asked me to say something about Srila Prabhupada, since Prabhupada's disappearance is on the 11th of this month. So Srila Prabhupada was in the Los Angeles temple, and I saw his picture several times, and I met the devotees in Vancouver, Canada. And I started taking prasadam. I read a Back to Godhead magazine, and I became attracted to the Krishna consciousness movement. By seeing Prabhupada's picture, hearing the philosophy, it started to make sense. I had heard other philosophies from other people that didn't make any sense. Some people said everything's nothing, you should think of nothing. So, we don't want to hear your philosophy. If everything's nothing, then why are you talking? There's nothing to talk about. So they didn't make any sense. One yoga man was teaching yoga, told me to sit and with my eyes closed and think of nothing. Well, you can't do that either. So if Krishna consciousness philosophy started to make sense, and the books made sense, and their lifestyle made sense, everything was very nice. So I went to the Los Angeles temple, and Srila Prabhupada was there for greeting the deities. So when I saw Srila Prabhupada, I saw a man that I'd never seen before, and in my mind I thought, this is not an ordinary man. This must be something, this man must be spiritual. So I stayed there. After I was wandering around for a while, I found the solution to how to cope with the material world. I didn't know how to cope with the material world. There was always so many problems. I could never do anything right. Everything was going wrong in my life. But when I came to the temple and started practicing Krishna consciousness, I understood that this was the best thing to do with my life. And Prabhupada was there, but I couldn't understand. Prabhupada was giving the Bhagavatam class, but I couldn't understand what Prabhupada was saying for the first week or two because he had a heavy accent. When I got used to it, then I could understand more and more. So Prabhupada would come and go. He made it his headquarters in the Western countries, the LA temple. The Prabhupada would come and go. So I went on a few morning walks with Prabhupada. Prabhupada, being in the presence of Prabhupada was always very special. You see, devotees are always in ecstasy when they're in the presence of Prabhupada. And it was like being in the spiritual world. You forgot about all your problems, all your troubles, and you were dancing feeling ecstatic in the presence of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was a Vaikuntha man. In Calcutta, we came in 1976 for the Mayapur festival. Then we went to Calcutta to come to Vrindavan for the second half of the festival. So Prabhupada was in Calcutta in the temple there, and they made an announcement that they were going to have a program at night. So we went to this program. It was at the house where Prabhupada, Mahatma Gandhi Road, where Prabhupada had his childhood, where Prabhupada spent his childhood. And then Prabhupada came to that program. And he had kirtan, then he gave a lecture. He said that when I was a child, my father got me a Rath Yatra card. I had Rath Yatra. And the neighbors were complaining to my father, you're having Rath Yatra and haven't invited us. But nothing has changed now. I'm still having Rath Yatra, but not here, but all over the world. So Prabhupada came to that, it was like a family reunion, but Prabhupada turned it into a spiritual activity. We had kirtan, and he spoke briefly, and we had another kirtan, and he left. So the whole atmosphere was surcharged with the presence of a pure devotee. So it says wherever pure devotee goes, that place becomes a place of pilgrimage. So the Prabhupada's rooms are there all over the world where Prabhupada stayed for some time, and they've become places of pilgrimage. So in this way, many devotees got initiated by Prabhupada, and some who were more fortunate got his Vani or his Vapu, his personal association. I didn't get much personal association. I went on a few morning walks. I've attended a few room conversations, but it was always very ecstatic to just be in the room with Prabhupada. It was always very something you'd want to do. Even in Mayapur in 1976, there was maybe 400 devotees there. So Prabhupada would have darshan in his room every night. So everyone thought that it's going to be too crowded, so we no point in going to the darshan. But I went to the darshan, and it wasn't crowded because room was full, but it wasn't so crowded. So Prabhupada was giving darshan every night, and he used to talk to the visiting guests and show them his books and preach to them. And one man said to Prabhupada, I would like to find a spiritual master. Well, Prabhupada said, okay, then you just stay here. Of course, the man wasn't serious. He said, well, I'll just come back later. He couldn't accept that proposal right away. So in this way, up till 1977, Prabhupada traveled all over the world 14 times in 12 years. He never got jet lag. He never deviated from his program. He was always steady, very steady in his daily programs. And now he's left his books, left his classes, left everything to us, his Vani. The Bapu is not as important as the Vani, the instructions. So we chant in the morning, Vande, Groshi, Charana, Vindam. We take shelter of his lotus feet. And we chant Shri Guru Charana Padma, Kevala Bhakti Sadma. That the only way to attain pure devotional service is the pure lotus feet of the pure devotee. So we can take shelter of Krishna Prabhupada's lotus feet by following his instructions. This is also King Rahuguna told Jadbharat that you should smear the dust, take the dust from the pure devotee and smear it all over your body. So in this way, the dust from the lotus feet, the water that washed the lotus feet, the remnants of food stuff, these are very powerful substances. When we should try to get them whenever we can. So we did get some remnants from Prabhupada's prasadam every day in LA. Prabhupada would take prasadam, then the servant would bring down the plate and we'd get something from Prabhupada's plate. And dust from his feet, you can go to the Samadhi, his footprints are there, you can take the dust from his feet. And so in this way, Prabhupada's there as our Shiksha Guru, and he left us for the next 10,000 years. He said his books were the law books for the next 10,000 years. So if you don't know what you should do, sometime during the day you can't figure out what you should do, some extra time is there. So you can put on a lecture, Prabhupada lecture. Listen to Prabhupada. He lectured on, there's over 700 lectures on Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad-Gita. Or you can put on a kirtan, Prabhupada kirtan. Or you could put on someone else's lecture, kirtan, but Prabhupada potency is there. When you can feel the potency when you listen to Prabhupada's lectures. And he wasn't that he went to America empty-handed. He prepared himself. He got the instruction from his spiritual master in 1922 that you should go to America, English-speaking world, and preach Krishna consciousness. Spread the message of Lord Chaitanya. So Prabhupada prepared himself by studying the Shastra, by associating with advanced devotees. He was awarded the title Bhakti Vedanta even while he was still in his household life. Then he took sannyas, and then in 1965 he departed for America. And so he's left us so many wonderful things we can take advantage of. And Prabhupada shows appreciate that Prabhupada was not an ordinary man, that he was a Nitya Siddha. He was sent by Krishna to preach Krishna consciousness, to spread this movement all over the world, to save the fallen conditioned souls. We'll stop there. Any comments, questions? Question man's here. You can turn off the fan if you don't. Is it bothering you? Fan? Is the microphone working or not?
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, you were glorifying Prabhupada, these are transferring in this the spiritual world, is not from this place, Prabhupada. And so now I have a doubt about that when he left his body, that time he was having this suffering. So can you explain something that why did this holy man had to suffer so much?
You think Prabhupada's body, he was suffering when he left his body?
Body suffering, at the end of the, he could not move, he passing the stool and urine and bed and this one. So how this transcendental man can get this materialist sickness?
Anyway, the body is there, the three modes of nature are there acting on the body. But the consciousness, Prabhupada's consciousness was never deviated. He was even translating and purporting the 10th canto up to the final days. He wasn't in the ICU, he didn't have tubes in his body, he didn't take any painkillers. So his consciousness was pure, not like an ordinary person. Even though an ordinary person would have been experiencing so much pain, there was no sign of pain in Prabhupada. Prabhupada was like Sukadeva Goswami or Maharaj Parikshit, when he was bit by the snake bird, he was already out of the bodily conception of life. He didn't feel anything. So we can't understand this from a materially contaminated view, but point of view. Seems like an ordinary thing, but it wasn't. Prabhupada coming here, preaching, and leaving here was not an ordinary thing. That's why you don't say birth and death for the spiritual master. He appears for some time, then he disappears. He doesn't take birth, he doesn't die like an ordinary man. Bhagavad-Gita ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.